Abdo Achkar, welcome to HAQQ. All right, it's good to have you, man. You're a good friend of mine, and you're also a partner with us at HAQQ. You know, you're our CTO, and you're also the CEO of Solutions and a million other things. What I love about talking with you is you're very well spoken. You have very deep thoughts, very well structured thoughts, and you're always talking about investment, and you also bring a U.S. perspective to things. Because for those who don't know, by the way, Abdo is from Silicon Valley in terms of expertise and in terms of most of his portfolio. So Abdo, I want to ask you, why startups? What's about startups?
Okay, very interesting question here.
Yeah.
So startup is generally a business in search for a business model.
Oof.
Okay, that's not my definition, it's Y Combinator's, but I'm gonna borrow it.
Okay.
So we're looking for innovation. So innovation is at the core of tech startups. Solving small problems that can have a 50x, 1000x effect. So startups have this thing that doesn't exist in larger companies. The ability to move rapidly doesn't exist in larger companies in general. And the ability to validate solutions to problems rapidly is at the core of startups. So generally, the quick kind of problem fixing and validation process usually happens in startups.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that a startup? It's a small company?
In search of a business model. So essentially you have a certain idea, hypothesis or whatever, and you want to go and validate it in the marketplace, right? So that's a tech solution that you're usually looking for, application.
And so like, what's the difference between a startup and a small business?
Yeah, so small business usually is it depends who you're asking, right? So if you're asking, tech people in Silicon Valley, essentially you'd be making a discernment between the two, right? A startup in this definition is not necessarily a small business. It is a business in search for a business model. Small business could be me starting an e-commerce website, okay? It's a proven model. I buy, I sell, or me starting a restaurant. I'm a new small business getting started. Difference would be between this and a startup is I'm a startup. I have an idea, hypothesis, it's not necessarily valid. No one's built it before. I'm gonna try it, bring it into a market, build the product, get it out. So this is more,
So there's a sense of like discovery, I guess.
Discovery is one of the most important aspects of
Stuff.
the definition. Yeah,
Right,
the definition between a startup
So
and a
discovery, risk, perhaps innovation. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And at what point do you stop being a startup, right?
Once you've validated, scaled up, you can become a scale up. Okay. So you validated the model, the customers are buying it. You've determined in a consumer business, CAC to LTV, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime value for the consumer product or for business to business products. Like you've determined that hey, also these metrics can be applicable. We've determined that hey, the model matched, the market wants it. We're able to grow it. We fundraise to grow the model that currently exists. That's when you're essentially scaling up and you become a scale up. Okay. So also new terminologies. They don't necessarily. If you're a scale up, doesn't mean you're not a startup, but it's fine. Like you can. So essentially, it's growth stage. You can call yourself like, hey, I'm out of the growth stage phase of my startup. I'm now a bit grown. I can fundraise some VC money to scale up and deploy the capital to accelerate my growth.
Okay. All right. And so, how do you think founders should approach starting a startup?
Okay, I love this question because most founders get it wrong.
I think every founder gets it wrong.
I would say most. I think most people get to building and that's the wrong direction. I think like for a B2B product at least, go to the market, talk to clients, try to sell first. Like if you can sell first, that would be awesome because you're getting real signal and not somebody telling you, hey, I love your idea. So somebody telling you they love your idea is not a good idea in general, okay? You want somebody to pay for your idea. So that's for the B2B. For B2C, I would validate my CAC before building as well. So for example, I would create an ad on Facebook, okay? Saying, hey, this is what my startup's gonna do. Okay, I'm solving a certain problem, and put it out on Facebook even before the product is built. You determine the click-through rate, and then this can give you an idea about how many people are interested in what you have, because you think people are interested in what you have because you're the creator of that idea. So validate it before you build. So I think founders should essentially get real metrics, real market signals, and real data before they build anything.
So that's really interesting because you're a builder, right?
Yeah.
You're a technologist, you're a builder, and here you are telling us to focus on the market aspect,
of course,
before we focus on the building aspect. Mm-hmm. Isn't that a bit counterintuitive?
It is not counterintuitive. It's yeah. I mean, the worst thing you want to do is build something that's not needed.
Right.
Okay.
Build something people want. Right.
Build something people want. So determine if they want it and build it. Of course, a lot of times people are wrong. And you can, come up with something that is really good and shift perspectives, but this is not usually the right way. Okay.
Right.
There could be exceptions. It's not like one rule that fits all. But yeah, a good exercise to do is validate market need.
I see. So validate first, because that's, I guess, cheap to validate.
It is super cheap.
Right.
You can validate your business model for a few $100 instead of building for 2 years and throwing the money away.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I guess obviously most of the money goes into building.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of building, and how? So okay, let's go back to this. A founder wants to start a company. Step number 1, they go validate in the market.
Validate the need.
Validate, pre-validate, whatever it is. Just make sure.
And sell some, probably, just like you did.
That's top secret. So what we gotta do then is we gotta go to the market and make sure the market wants what we want to sell. Number 1. Okay. What then?
Okay. So once you have this, what I would do is I would prototype. Okay. So instead of building as well, don't go and build and build and build. Prototype. If you can prototype.
What's a prototype?
A prototype is a design that is clickable. Okay.
And do you think in the AI age with
it's
apps like Replit, Cursor, Lovable, do you think we're gonna get to fully functional prototypes that you can actually use?
It should get you a fully functional prototype, which is good. It's not the best scalable method, but it is what you can get started with. Okay.
So you start with an AI version of the product that's you can click on and use, and then you re-architect later.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So just get something in the hand of the customers.
Okay.
Get them to use the product, get feedback, fix it, change it,
Should you
collect
charge?
data.
Should you charge for that?
Who's charging?
The guy. Should you, as a founder, charge?
You could, yeah, of course. I mean, this is if you're saying you're not giving them a functional product, then that's a different story, right?
Okay.
But yeah, you could. I'm always a fan of getting the right market signals. If somebody's joining my journey and I'm solving their problem, I should charge for it. Okay. So charge ahead of time. Get them to be committed. They'll be your partners in this, as in you're gonna get their feedback. You're gonna treat them really well, and then implement what they need. In the beginning, it's an okay idea to implement what they need, but in general, once you start having more and more customers, you want to filter out the feedback and determine what is actually feature freaking concept or real product need. Okay, because sometimes we can get a few samples and we believe this is the product. You don't want to use a few samples to construct and build 1 or 2 customers want, and they might have a unique need. So yeah.
So data sampling. Data sampling.
More data sampling. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you validate the idea, you build a prototype, then what?
You get it in the hand of as many people as you can.
Okay.
Start collecting data. Okay.
To do what?
To essentially guide yourself. So essentially you need to guide your product. It is a living animal. It's not hey, I have a product idea, I build it, that's it.
Right.
A lot of first-time founders think that they've landed on $1 billion idea from the first product idea they have. I have $1 billion idea, I'm going to build it, and that's it. It doesn't work this way. You're in discovery. You're prototyping, you're getting in the market, showing it to customers, getting feedback, determining common ground, who's willing to pay. It doesn't mean like the most vocal customer is the best customer. There could be a vocal customer or a customer who doesn't speak, but the customer who doesn't speak is a person who has a better insight. So a lot of the time we have the crybaby effect, right? So customer is crying a lot.
Just because they're the loudest doesn't mean they're right. Yes. Or that's what's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of $1 billion ideas, how rare are they? And how would you feel if someone gave you an NDA before they told you their idea?
Okay, so you never sign an NDA as an investor.
Ever?
Almost never. It doesn't make sense. You should get a basic conversation going. You're not going to remember whom you're talking with, so it's pointless. If somebody tells us like, hey, sign an NDA before we talk, we generally don't do this.
I see.
Okay? If we're signing an NDA after we've talked a few times because we want to get access to some more in-depth data, then it makes sense. Because like, hey, I'm getting this in-depth data that you don't want to share with anybody else. I'm already interested in speaking further with you, then it makes sense. But yeah, for you to tell me like what you're building to make me sign an NDA is just a waste of my time and potentially yours.
Here's the thing. I agree with you because I've lived it, right? But for someone who has just had their first idea and they think their idea is going to be worth $1 billion, $1 trillion, whatever, there's a lot of reluctance talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be reluctant to talk about it, or should they just go the opposite direction and talk as much as they can about it as loudly as possible?
It's neither. I wouldn't say like go and talk to everyone about it, okay? Because especially you can tell me like, hey, why don't I go and talk to my competitor about it? Or you don't want to do this, right? So you want to talk to, especially if you're talking to an investor, you have to basically share something. Research them ahead of time. If they've invested in a competitor, it doesn't make sense, at least in the beginning. But later on, it might make sense to talk to an investor into your competitor because you could be an acquisition target, okay? Especially if they're much bigger than you, okay?
I see what you mean.
But yeah, early on, talk to as many of your close friends, people, group, whatever, as possible to collect information, basic. It depends. If it's a consumer product, then talk to consumers. If it's a market product, if it's too easy to copy, then you're not in the right business anyway. So you don't have any defensibility. Okay. It's almost never the idea. It's almost always the execution of the idea. So yeah, you want to get out. If you're reluctant, you're wrong. Change your mind. It doesn't work. You're gonna be locked in a room most of the time. Okay. There are exceptions, but most of the time, this is a waste of time.
Cool. So speaking of execution, what are the most important characteristics in a founder or founding team that would lead to good execution, do you think?
Okay. Yeah, this is a really important one. Execution is one, cutting in the right jungle. You don't want to cut trees in the wrong jungle. Okay, so determining what's right. Then once you determine what's right, you want to cut. Okay? So first, determining what's right is collect data, validate, build. Collect data, validate, build. Okay? You'll be wrong probably more than 80% of the time, and you want to shrink this as much as possible. Okay? But always validate, build. So measure twice and cut once. Once you've started cutting, make sure to cancel out the noise. You're going to have a lot of clients telling you like, hey, we want this, want that, we want this, want that. Filter out the noise, prioritize, determine the long-term gain versus the short-term gain, and put them together, and then this is when you build. When you're building, you build rapidly, or when you're selling, you sell rapidly. You go and you do, you go and you do. So now it's a grind time. Go ahead and grind and get the product out, okay?
I see. And what are some of the characteristics that make you fail?
There are many. Okay. One, before you start, you need to commit. Okay, so commitment is one of the biggest failing points for startups. Okay, so you want to have grit, you want to commit. Don't join a startup if not just as a founder or as co-founder or even an employee. If you're not willing to commit for 3 years at least, startups are not for you. Okay, so you want to commit time, effort, ignoring all the distractions of the world. Your friends, your family, your wife, people will tell you like, hey, this is a bad idea after you've spent like 6 months and you're not getting results. A lot of people will tell you it's not going to work. So you need to fight all the voices. Okay, so you need to commit ahead of time. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's really important to find good co-founders. Without a co-founder, it becomes like much harder to move forward. Okay, I'm a solo. I understand how complicated it is. It is much lower in likelihood to succeed as a solo. Okay, so yeah, you wanted to ask why? It's a level of effort and work, and a lot of times people get bored or they feel like if no one's believing in their idea, it's hard. Or sometimes like if you're even by yourself, you'll be like, is it a good idea? Why isn't anybody joining me? So you start doubting yourself. So there are a lot of components. Having somebody with you to throw the ball for or towards, and have somebody push you when you're down, or etc. is important, right? So two is better than one.
Okay. So that's it.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes like you might have a bad founder. You have founder divorces. It gets hard. So yeah, it's as important to find a good co-founder, if not more, than to being alone is better than finding a bad co-founder.
I see what you mean, but although you're not a lawyer, I'm sure you've seen so many legal red flags in startups.
Mm-hmm.
Be it as an investor, as a founder. So my question is, what are they?
Okay.
And what's the biggest red flag of them all?
Okay. Biggest of them all, we'll get to it. Let me get my thoughts and going. But initially, any co-founders need to have a founder agreement. Okay? Don't start a company with a friend saying, hey, we both own it 50-50, we're 50-50 partners today. It doesn't work this way. You need to set up a vesting schedule. You need to set up the roles. You need to make sure that the person can grow with the startup as it grows. So the founding agreement needs to exist. Okay, so this is one of the most important ones getting started. A lot of founders or co-founders have these issues early on because they don't do this. Okay, you end up having to let a CTO go because you said he's gonna leave his work and join you, but then he ended up sticking in his work, and now that you're ready to go to market, he's not ready to leave. Okay, but he's your 50-50 partner. How do you treat this? Okay, so this is a big problem. Founding agreement is really important. Other legal pitfalls would be choosing wrong jurisdictions. That would be an important one for me. So let's say I pick a jurisdiction where I can't fire someone because they're not good. That's a slow one. Jurisdictions that are very slow, so you need to pick the right jurisdiction for the right business that you have. That's another legal one. Intellectual property is really important as well. So the property needs to become property of the company, not property of the founders. It's really important. So that is a big red flag sometimes when founders say, hey, I invented this. No, you didn't. The company invented this. Everything belongs to the company. So I've seen these being a problem in the past. These are the points that are on mind right now.
You know who did that? Adam Newman. He owned the copyright to the We trademark.
Okay.
And he would sub-license it to We Work.
Okay.
And I guess that's some of the shittiest thing you could do as a founder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Lots of shitty stuff going on. And so, do you think the Middle East is able to produce winners? Yes or no?
Okay, so can the Middle East or anywhere else in the world make winners? Winners can come out of everywhere. Okay, so that is how I think about the world. But at the same time, how do you maximize your winning? Okay, you maximize your winning by being in the right place where I would say like the likelihood of success becomes higher and higher. So the Middle East right now, I don't think it has the full spectrum of successful. It doesn't have a full spectrum for, I would say, a platform for startups yet. It doesn't mean like startups cannot succeed. That's something that we've agreed on.
No,
but it's the likelihood becomes smaller and smaller. Yeah.
So you're saying it's tough as it is. You might as well go somewhere with a proven track record.
Yeah.
You want the full market with a proven track record of producing success.
I'm not saying you should go there. If you're building something that doesn't make sense to build in Silicon Valley, then don't build it in Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
You're an example of that. You probably disagree with me. But yeah, different products have different markets. But in general, if I want to build a certain tech product, I would like to have the ability to go from, startup, fundraising A or seed to A to other rounds and be able to exit. And if I don't have the whole spectrum, it's really hard for me to fundraise if I don't have an exit in sight, right? So the investors are not going to invest much in certain markets if they don't see the exit in sight. So you need to have an exit or an IPO, either an IPO or a larger company to acquire you. Most of the unicorns are coming out of the US, right? Per capita, okay? There are other hubs, but the US is generally the largest hub, okay? So you don't go and build the startup. You can succeed in Bangladesh, and we have some of our friends that have invested in successful startups in Bangladesh, right? But it doesn't mean that I would want to go and build a startup in Bangladesh because it's less likely to succeed.
I see what you mean. I think that's a fair mental model to work on, right? And to work under. But will we even have room for startups anymore with what's going on with AI? Do you think AI, maybe not today, but in 15, 20 years, will even leave room for anything in the economy? What's going to go?
Okay, that's anything in the economy, of course. Okay, so there are certain things that you're gonna need a plumber, right? So that could be a good direction to focus your career on.
It's official. We should all go into plumbing.
Yeah. AI is going to do a lot of things much better than we do, including startups, including building some of the best businesses. It's going to be able to communicate more rapidly through, MCPs, all of the other
blah 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 blah. Yeah.
Okay. There will be certain different verticals that I don't think AI will dominate, which would be, I would say being an artist. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of AI direction as well. But entertainment. So entertainment is going to be, it will have room. So sports, artists. So these will have room. Okay. I do believe in a world that AI will dominate, and most people will live on a basic income. Yeah.
UBI.
Yeah.
UBI for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're getting into controversial stuff, but
well,
yeah.
I mean that's where the views are, Abdo.
Yeah.
We gotta get views. So, is it dystopian?
I don't know.
No one knows, but what do you think?
It could get into dystopia.
What's the dark side of AI?
Again, we don't know. We don't know how these superintelligent systems will analyze the, human beings to be as, right? So I don't know if a human being is going to be considered a threat and accordingly it would be eliminated.
Terminator style?
Could be. Again, a lot of people might feel I'm speaking about fiction. I'm not. Okay. This is kind of like projected to be from a while, but now that ChatGPT is happening, people are starting to realize that this is becoming more of a reality. So it's easier right now to speak about it than it was like a few years ago. So yes, there could be these directions. More likely scenarios would be an intelligent system would feel that it's much more superior than you are, and it would not hurt you. But in my opinion, for humans to be able to survive in this world, there should be a human-machine marriage. So it would be more into bionics. You will have, more like Neuralink-oriented directions. You have to upgrade your intelligence level in order to be able to survive and compete. And that might be, the next best direction for human beings. Being a human alone, you're gonna have two choices. One is being left behind. You live on a basic income, universal basic income. You're happy, you eat, you die. Second part would be, hey, I'm gonna get integrated into a machine or have a machine integrated within me. I'm gonna live much longer. I'm gonna have higher intelligence. I'm gonna be able to dominate. So that is the other direction. The third would be a machine would feel like a threat, which I don't think is the most important or the most likely scenario. I think the second and third that I mentioned would be the most likely scenarios.
Which is very similar to a cyber, a steampunk, cyberpunk, whatever it is, scenario where we're in the grid, we're plugged into the grid.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah. Something like that, maybe. We don't know, but when do you think we will know? How? When do you think we're gonna know? Right now the dust is in the air, but the dust is gonna settle. How are we supposed to tell that the dust is about to settle? This is my question.
Okay, so it's gonna happen so fast. Okay.
How fast?
Super fast. Like we're very
1 week,
bad.
1 month, 1 year.
Once superintelligence is achieved, it is already connected to almost everything. Okay, so the speed of which this can happen is not something I would know about. We're very bad as human beings to anticipate exponential, right? So we think in terms of linear most of the time.
You're talking about a civilizational event horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be super fast. It could be, right now I'm projecting like 3 to 5 years as things will be moving super fast, faster and faster. But what we've been seeing in the past year, we've been seeing the acceleration go even faster. We're getting innovation every day. At this rate, we don't know what's going to come out tomorrow. By the time things come out tomorrow, the whole world, I understand adoption can take a little bit of time sometimes, but we're not the adoptees in this case, right? So we're the adopters. The system is going to be able to adopt itself and basically propagate. So that's not necessarily my most important concern. There will be a lot of things. It's a lot of demographic oriented directions. We're going to live longer. So it's super exciting. It's a very, very exciting period of time right now. It's crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. We can anticipate certain things, but it's going to be crazy quick.
Abdo, this has been dense, but I want to condense it even more into one feeling.
What?
One feeling. One feeling. Should we be excited or should we be afraid?
Well, every person can take what I've said and analyze it in their own way of feeling. For me, I'm super excited. I can't be more excited. Am I going to say I'm not afraid at all? Not necessarily. There is a certain small piece of me that is afraid of the unknown and that thing that we've never encountered in our life. You have to be afraid a bit, at least, about the system that can come and control you. But am I excited? You know me, I'm always excited. It is a realm that, I'm familiar with. I love AI. I've worked in AI like 20 years ago. So I'm pretty much, about 20 years ago.
Time flies, huh?
Yeah.
Time flies. Abdo, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Good having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.